Today, the OneCast is joined by Will Harkins, who finished second in Angler of the Year points in 2023 for the National Professional Fishing League.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's going to be a bad day.
What's going on, fans of the OneCast? I know Pete was getting ready to jump in there. We are glad to have you back. We're glad to have Ben back from his awesome vacation overseas in, well, I say overseas, but I guess it's Hawaii. So,
but I mean, it is kind of overseas.
it definitely
ways to get there. I know that.
But before we jump into it, Ben, did you have a great vacation?
Yeah, it was a great time. The weather was amazing. First time being there. So got the opportunity to go over to Pearl Harbor, which is outstanding. Go out to the Arizona. So I wasn't going to travel that far and not go see that. And then we spent a week on the Big Island. So the coolest thing is like there's 8 different climate zones in the one island. So you drive like 20 minutes and it's completely different terrain and vegetation. So definitely fun to kick back. Basically cut off for the world for about a week, but been back a couple of days and grinding again. So back at it.
That's right. Being cut off from the world. Thank everyone for your support to OneCast Fishing. And now that you're grinding it, guys, Christmas is right around the corner. Head on over to OneCastFishing.com. Use the code TheOneCast. You're going to save some money at checkout and get some of those great stocking stuffers, such as the snagless jigs. You want to join the snagless revolution? Check those out. All the varieties are there, all the colors. Soft plastics are back. Long neck hooks, weedless nets. Those are definitely awesome for crushing those fish in the wintertime when they're lethargic. So head on over to OneCastFishing.com. Use the code TheOneCast and save some dollar bills. Pete, what is good?
Not much, man. Been hunting, ain't been fishing. We did hang out at Cashin. Trey came for a little bit, hung out at Cashin on Saturday. They had their customer appreciation event, so ate some barbecue, listened to some testimony and stuff from the Boys and Girls Club, flipped into some cups, talked to John Cruz and Mike Corbishley, who were both there, hung out with them for a bit. So it was a good event, had fun, got to meet a couple a talk to a guy in your neighborhood that lives in your neighborhood for quite a while. He actually used to build machines for a living and said, if you have any questions, let him know. So I'll send you his name.
Do you remember his name?
Yeah, I do. But yeah, so it was a good time, man. It's good to get out and see folks. There was somebody there. I think it was Zach Van Voorhees was there with one of our hats on, and I never got a chance to talk to him. He was chasing.
I did see.
He was chasing his kid around, and I think he had his wife or fiance. I didn't look to see if he had a ring, so I apologize. There with him, didn't get a chance to talk to you. So if that was you, Zach, I apologize. It was crazy. We had a ton of people.
It looked like a great event. I was seeing the photos as I was on the airplane on the way back. I think I was over Montana or something when I saw him.
Yeah, and Working Class Outdoors.
Rayvon
was there. Hooked Trey up with some deer jerky, and
deer sausage
like that day.
Yeah, I got to give a huge shout out to him, man. Like so not only to him, but everybody, right? Like this is why we have this show, and it's opened the doors to meeting great people. And like you're about to hear, we're going to bring Mr. Will Harkins on, and he's going to wrap with us a little bit, but like it's opened some great doors for us to just meet great people in the industry and continue building that culture. And I'll tell you, the guys at work, Rayvon from Working Class Outdoors, the guys crushed that deer sausage. So it was definitely well received and an early little Christmas present for the OneCast. So much appreciated. But
yeah, it was a nice surprise. Make sure you check them out. Working Class Outdoors on Instagram. Bass and Through is another one. We're going to throw a couple of names out there. Check him out. Rick put some videos together and tagged us in it. So appreciate all that support. I'm going to get out of the way now. Wherever you're listening, like, comment, subscribe, leave a message. Join our community on Facebook, get involved in the conversation. We are giving sneak peeks of shows to come and the opportunity for y'all to give us some input. So
that's right.
Check that out. But without wasting any more time, let's go ahead and bring on.
Let's bring him on, dude.
Let me see if I can figure this out.
What's up, guys?
Limited budget.
What's going on, Will Harkins? You are not in Georgia right now. Is that correct?
I actually am. I'm on the Georgia-North Carolina line. Right.
Okay. All right. So you're hanging out. We talked about it a little bit before the show. You're hanging out at Lake Chatoog doing some fishing. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. Yep. Just up here camping for the week, doing a little bit of fishing.
That's awesome, man. Well, cool. We appreciate you taking some time out of your day. I know we talked when we were down, with Brad and Paul and your guys' final event at Lake Lanier, which you did an awesome job at, and we definitely want to recap on that. But we got this set up, and appreciate Pete coordinating all this. So thanks for taking the time to jump on with us. And for all the fans and everyone listening, you know, there's a lot of people that are new listeners and stuff. So if you can just kind of introduce yourself to the fans and everybody, where you came from, how you got into fishing, and then what you're currently doing now would be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was great getting to know you guys at Lanier as well. But for everyone, I'm Will Harkins. I'm born and raised Blairsville, Georgia. So we're about 20 minutes from there over in Hiwassee. So I've grown up here all my life. My grandpa started me fishing. He took me on his boat when I was 3 years old. Was the first time he took me out. And so ever since then, I've just fallen in love with it, whether it's bass fishing, trout fishing, you know, whatever it may be, as long as I can wet a hook, I'm there for it. So kind of got into, you know, tournament fishing in high school, later junior, senior year. Carried that on into college at Young Harris College. So I graduated there this last May with a degree in economics. So I can count how much money I lose fishing.
Do a good job keeping track of that, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, I just kind of carried it on and jumped on with the NPFL guys this year for an awesome 2023 season.
Yeah, first year with the league, you had 2 second places. I think both of them were to Patrick. So I guess if you're going to finish second to somebody, it might as well be Patrick Walters, who's been winning everything, and finished second in AOI. So obviously every other tournament you were super strong in as well.
Yes, sir. So, yeah, I finished second. One was actually behind, or we tied with Mr. Louis Fernandez for the win.
Okay.
And he ended up
that's
winning
right.
the tiebreaker. Yeah. So I finished third to Patrick at Santee as well. So that was
okay. Yeah. I knew there was a couple close calls with him, and then I forgot about the tie. And it comes down to big fish, the first tiebreaker, and heck of a rookie year. But I mean, it's not like it's your first time fishing big tournaments. If I remember correctly, and I looked, it's been a couple of days, but I think you had a second in AOI in the BFLs, a third in AOI in the BFLs, and then another top 10 AOI in the BFLs. National championship qualifier in college via a win, correct?
Yes, sir. Yep.
And then did you fish anything in high school?
Yes, sir. So fish just same thing, a lot of MLF events as well as regional events for MLF with their high school stuff. So
okay.
That kind of got me into the bigger tournament, so to speak.
Yeah, I think college. Do you think college is a good prep circuit for those bigger tournaments?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you look at the Bassmaster College guys right now. I mean, they're capping out every tournament, 250 boats. So it really it makes you be a better fisherman. You know, competing against all those guys, and there are some absolute hammers in college. You know, unbelievable guys over there. So it kind of, you know, you've got to look and work on the little things is what kind of sets you apart in such a big field. So it definitely helps prep you for these bigger tournaments.
With the college circuits, and I don't know, honestly, out of curiosity, do you have a coach that is in charge of all the anglers in the collegiate level?
So it depends on where you go to college. I know a lot of colleges do. Young Harris, we had a school liaison. So he kind of gave us permission to go, but then my partner and I would kind of sit down, look at the schedule, look at the funding, and kind of make our own schedules and everything in regards to where are we traveling, you know, how much school can we afford to miss, and such as that. But it all kind of depends where you go.
And with the faculty, like all the professors and stuff, do they, because let's be honest, we all know if you go to a Big Ten or an SEC, you know, school or something like that, like football players, nobody can deny this. They get a lot of like favors, you know, but when it comes to the angling side of the house, like how is balancing like, you know, practice and tournaments and stuff with your classes? Do they give you a lot of like latitude?
So you always get a funny look when you come up and tell a professor, hey, I'm going to miss school because of fishing, you know, because that's something that especially around here is not a known thing, you know, football, soccer, all that stuff, you know, that's typical, but fishing, they're like, I don't know about that one. So you definitely have to, as long as you know, go in advance, kind of run them through what you're doing, who is it with, They really worked with you, or at least with me at Young Harris College. So we couldn't miss, a ton of school, but I think they allowed us 2 weeks or something.
Okay.
Without
generous.
That's interesting. Like, when you look at like Texas and Alabama, like they bleed football, but they also bleed, like bass fishing is in the blood in those states. And I would think the same for, like the Carolinas and Georgia and stuff like that. But maybe maybe this is how we are growing the sport, is by influencing like faculty to give us time off to go fishing. You know what I mean? So
if you think locally, like being in North Carolina, we know like NC State has a team. You don't really hear a ton about it. You don't hear a ton about UNC's team, but then you get a Clemson and some of the names that have come out of there.
That's right.
So it probably is kind of regional a little bit. I don't know. What's Georgia? I mean, you're not too far from Georgia. Do they have a fairly big fishing program? The University of Georgia?
So Georgia, it's got a few guys. I know probably 6 or 7 years ago, it was a lot bigger than it was now. So it's kind of slowed down, but it's still not like a Clemson or a Montevallo or anything.
Yeah. Auburn's another one that has a huge team. So you mentioned something kind of interesting there. You have a liaison that helps you work with the school and all that. And then you talked about funding. Where in college, obviously that's not a college sanctioned sport. You're not technically like a school team. I mean, I know you rep your school. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. No, you're correct with that.
So where does the majority of that funding come from? Do you have to do your own fundraising or how does that work? Are there scholarship programs out there, or, like do some of the companies help college teams to be able to afford to do that?
Yes, sir. So in short, Young Harris, they kind of set up a bank account for us. But that's something that we raise funding for. Half of the winnings that we get from tournaments go back into that fund. So a lot of that was self-funding.
Okay.
Man, I'd be lobbying with the football teams.
Yeah.
I'd be like, yo, listen, you don't need new shoulder
Let me get
pads,
some of
son.
that budget.
I need a new bait caster.
No, that's
absolutely. Yeah, and we partnered with several companies. Abu Garcia was one, Pure Fishing. So we got a lot of baits and all from them. Once a year shipment of stuff. But as far as that goes, that was more product based versus your funding. So all the funding came through us.
That's tough.
So you graduated with your bachelor's in economics, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
How has that, besides showing you how much money you have, I don't know, spent or lost or donated to the cause, talk us through how your college education and having that discipline to finish that out while still fishing, how has that benefited you fishing the MPFL?
Yeah, absolutely. So, economics is kind of applicable in every part of life. You've got, especially fishing, you've got your tournament entries, your funds, your traveling, your lodging. There's a million things that go into it. So to kind of be able to sit down and allocate your needs versus your wants, do I want this new bait caster spinning rod, but I need a house at the next event too. So it kind of makes you, make smarter decisions, obviously, with fishing and I guess the biggest players when it comes to sponsorships is kind of, part of economics is the allocation of resources and marketing. So kind of learning to market yourself as well and kind of value that worth for companies is definitely helpful.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, when it comes to saying, describe your value proposition to me, like if I'm a sponsor or a partner and stuff, like I'm going to ask you to explain that. How are you going to benefit me and give me a return on investment, whatever the case may be? Has anybody given you a nickname on tour yet? I'm thinking
Mr. Luke Duncan gave me the Harkey dance.
The Harkey dance. So Patrick, Walters.
Mm-hmm.
What's his?
Dream Crusher, obviously.
Dream Crusher. Okay, because I've always heard him referred to as Coach Walters, right?
Yep. Yes.
But I'm looking at young Mr. Will Harkins here, and I'm like, Professor Harkins, dude. Professor Harkins. Like he's gonna school you on economics. He's gonna show you how to prioritize finances. And when it comes to negotiation, he's gonna say, here's your value proposition. So we coined that term. Don't let Luke Duncan steal that from us, Professor Harkins.
Yeah, I like that one a lot better. Yeah, they gave me the Harkey after I did some sort. I don't even know what it was after catching the fish.
The Harkey
So I don't know where
dance,
it came
man.
from. But that is that.
So you have a family that's 100% behind you in this sport, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, I could not do it without them. Just the sacrifices and the time off. Outside of fishing, I work with my dad. So he's my boss too. So he lets me, if I need a day off to go fishing or go fish this tournament or whatever, super flexible. He'll drive me, he'll fund me, he'll do everything he can to make it happen. So it's been awesome.
What do you do with your dad?
So he owns a couple companies. Construction would be the primary one, home maintenance, property management. So a little bit of everything.
Okay. I mean, that's good, man, having that foundation, because, we talk to a lot of professional anglers, and even at the local club level, it's like a lot of gambling happens, you're gambling with finances and logistics and everything else. So having something to fall back on is pretty critical. And I think that's what you see with a lot of these anglers, and we'll get into that later, but and I don't want to steal the thunder here, but I did want to ask, like, what was the mentality through school? What was your overall goal, or maybe your different objectives that you wanted to meet along the way? Like, why the league?
Yeah. So, coming into this year, a guy kind of pointed me towards the NPFL. I was like, no, there's no way I'll compete. No way I can do that. $32,000 in entry fees plus travel. I didn't even have I had an older boat at the time. I was like, there's just no way to make that work. But I'm a big believer in God's purpose. So, I mean, things just fell into place that you wouldn't believe to allow it to happen. So going through school, fishing was not my main priority. I never once did I think I could compete or make a living at the level that you need to. So, I was more or less learning for a job, for a career. And so I took the leap of faith with the NPFL. And so now I couldn't see myself sitting in an office or doing anything different.
So it's like, who says it? Like, they introduced you to crack. Was it James Watson? He was like, oh, they're crack fiends, man. They just can't stop.
Yeah.
But I mean, the NPFL is a great place to be. Is it the only place you want to be, or are there other aspirations?
Honestly, I don't know. Each year is new and exciting, and I'm open to any opportunities. NPFL has obviously been my platform, my kick jump for this. So I wouldn't see myself leaving it anytime soon. But like I said, when opportunity comes knocking, I'm more than open to make the jump.
I like that, man. Well, you almost held that gold shield up, and maybe we'll see that for you next year. I'm gonna turn it over to these guys because I keep talking. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's awesome, that you were able to put it together and things fell into place like it so often does when we're chasing dreams, and the support of the family, and obviously a boat came around, and the sponsorship dollars kind of start to fall into place, and certainly you've proven your value. I mean, you're 20, correct? 20 years old?
22, just turned 22.
I knew you were, pretty young by comparison to a lot of people that compete, but up on stage at Lanier, listening to you talk and the things you said, man, you probably get tired of hearing it, but you have like that old soul, kind of like super calm and collected, and not like I've been here before, but you didn't seem to get too excited, kept a nice level head. And I think that's huge when it comes to being successful. And I think you've definitely proven that you belong coming in your first year and finishing second to AOI and several top tens, and, made a little bit of money, which is always good. Oh, yeah. So super excited to see that continue. So, you fished college, you fished high school. Ben, you got anything on the college stuff? I'm kind of starting to move. We're moving ahead a little bit.
Well, I was going to include college because my question is, because this is your first year in the NPFL. obviously fishing college, fishing BFLs, but this is a higher level competition. The stakes are certainly higher when you look at the payouts. You're traveling a whole lot more, which means a lot more finances involved.
Yes.
So kind of, where'd you going into the year now that you've completed it, were there any surprises, or what were the things you learned the most that you maybe weren't prepared for your first year, but now going into the second year, you just maybe it calms you down a little bit and you go from second place to first place in England, AOI next year?
Yes, for sure. The first two events is what cost me AOI. The first event, I was a ball of nerves. First level at this tournament, it was on Pickwick. So the very first day, I about ditched everything in practice. I ended up fishing both dams in one day. So, they're 50 miles apart.
Hey, I've done that before. Just start running all over the place. I feel that in my soul.
Yes. Yeah. When in doubt, you cover more water than anyone else.
That's right.
So I ended up, I think, 28th there. And then Wright Patman, I was actually in the hospital on our off day. I don't know what was up. Some food sickness or something happened. So I really wasn't even going to fish the event. But I woke up the tournament morning and I was like, I gotta just try it. So I ended up, I think, 22nd there for the week, in Texas. So then, that after those first two events, you kind of get it under your feet a little bit. You know what's up, how these guys are doing, how to fish a 3-day event was the biggest change I had to learn, how to manage fish and all. So going into those last 4 events, I definitely kept a more level head and just put my head down and just went and had fun most of all. Fished the way I wanted to fish, that I love to fish, and made it happen. So that definitely helped as the year progressed.
What was your toughest event in 23? What was your worst finish?
28th at Pickwick.
Oh, darn. Dude, you're a hammer, man.
I mean, it's pretty good at the first event of the year is your worst one. You just keep going up from there. I mean,
yeah. So as a young angler going into, the league, like, I'm sure it was intimidating. There's a lot of people that, they're a lot older than you and stuff. As far as being a young angler walking into that, and I know Hayden Hammond, he's really young as well. How were you received by all the anglers in the league?
Yeah, so I have yet to meet a guy that I don't like on the league. They are all super welcoming, super awesome. They'll give the shirt off the back to you. And namely the directors, Brad, Paul, Al, Sean, all these guys will do anything for you. So I say this a lot, but it's truly a family atmosphere with them. So it makes, it made that transition super easy after I kind of got past my own mental blocks, so to speak. But yeah, all those guys are so awesome. They're willing to help out any way that possible. So it's definitely such an awesome trail.
So, I mean, Ben asked the question and I'm kind of rewinding here, but to kind of caveat like what he asked about, preparation and stuff for 2024, you talked about going in the hospital, but you're like, know what? Yeah, I'm going to fish this next one. Anything outside of the fishing aspect? Was there things that you learned like logistically with Airbnbs, vehicles, maintenance, things like that you weren't prepared for?
Yeah, so definitely. The first few events, I didn't have a spare prop in the boat. So I've learned the mechanics a little more, what to do when your electronics shut off, So I got an extra prop in the boat now. Just little things like that you wouldn't really think of going into it. But I realized really quick how much more knowledge that you needed of the mechanics of electrical, everyday stuff. And then how to choose your place of stay. Just make sure it's safe areas, well lit, things like that. So just a lot more study time into it than I had originally done.
Yeah, I can tell you that we made a huge. Well, we didn't make a huge mistake, but you're absolutely right. Like when we met you guys down at Lanier, I stayed with Billy Hackworth and Josh Watkins and John Branch and Josh's wife that night before Ben and Pete came into town. And the house that they had rented was, from an aerial view, fantastic looking. But as soon as you pulled up to it, and I'm sure you probably saw this at Lanier, a lot of those driveways were at like a 45 plus degree angle, which made it extremely challenging. So therefore you had to adjust your boat and park it on the side of the road. Now you don't have the extension cords you need to get the power to your batteries, so on and so forth. And I think those are the things that, we like to ask those questions, because there's a lot of guys and gals that aspire to fish multi-day events, but there's so much logistics that go back into it. And the same thing you said about security. I mean, like a well-lit environment that's maybe not off the main highway where there's constant break-ins and stuff that happen. Those are things to take into consideration. And that's the kind of information that we like to use to continue to grow this environment.
And it's great to get that out there, because there's nothing worse, because it's happened before with me before. Show up to a hotel, there's no outlets there on the outside.
That's right.
So you learn the lesson the hard way. You get a call beforehand and be like, hey, do you have outlets on the outside, or can I park up front or something? So it's always, so folks out there listening or watching, if you're getting into this game, it's the little things out there can go a lot smoother for you.
Yeah, I don't stay in hotels when I travel.
Oh, I will never stay in one again.
Just because of the traffic. Plugs for power. There's a ton of foot traffic around hotels. It's just, I never feel as secure as I can if I can back into a driveway and do that. And I mean, there's so many Airbnbs everywhere now. Like, unless you're fishing a big 300 boat tournament, which it's going to get tougher for y'all with more anglers now. There's going to be more competition for those places. But my suggestion to everybody is, people ask, what's a good hotel to stay in? I say an Airbnb. Don't stay in a hotel, because you're going to get broke into probably, especially around our lakes. So our lakes tend to be in not the greatest areas. So when we travel, we always try to do that. But, you brought up something interesting, like the spare prop. Those are lessons that I learned early on, and I guess took for granted being a bit older, thinking like, I always have I carry 3 spare props for my trolling motor, because I've broke 2 in a tournament before. But what I want to get back to fishing, and you brought up learning about managing fish over a 3-day tournament. So what is your fish management mentality in a 3-day tournament like that?
Yeah, so it depends on the lake, obviously. So like a Lanier, I'm going to burn down every spot I've got every day. It's just full of fish. You're never going to outfish them. In practice, I'll catch them. I don't care. Just because I've been there a million times and I know what spotted bass do. Places that I'm not sure about, like a right Patman, like those are places that you've got to be very careful, because you rarely catch a fish in the same spot twice. There's not schools, there's not anything like that. You're fishing individual fish. So it's definitely a learning curve at each lake that you go to. Like I said, it all depends.
I think that's a good answer. That's kind of, you hear people talk about like, oh, I don't jack them in practice. And there's lakes where you don't. Like, there's lakes I don't even practice on anymore, because it's never the same the next day. But Lanier, I learned that pretty quick. I spent a day with Hunter Bogman, and it was like I caught all my fish in the same 6 spots, and you kind of learn, oh, well, these fish just reload. Like, and I've never seen anything like Lanier. I've never seen so many brush piles of fish in my life.
It is a brush pile.
Lanier is just a big brush pile, the whole lake.
It's a deadly brush pile with a lady that lives in the lake.
But it where it becomes is like you were talking, like a right Patman, where, and especially when you were all over there this year, because it was super high, like it was up in the bushes. The fish were even more spread out than they normally are in a body of water like that. So, like in that event in practice, were you not catching fish? Were you shaking fish off, or was it roll into an area, catch one, and then leave? Say, okay, they're kind of focusing on this type of brush, or they're doing this. Because I know you said it was a bad tournament, but you still finished, 22nd, so it wasn't horrible.
Yeah, so a place like that, the first day, new lake, never been there before, didn't pre-practice anything like that. The first day, I'm going to catch fish, just to see the quality, just to see, the areas, how they bite. So the first day of an event, I will catch some. Now after that, the next 2 days, once you kind of get an idea what to look for, I'm going to cut the hooks off. I'm going to bend them over. I'm just going to shake them off. So the biggest thing, I want to know the quality. I want to know how they bite, because how they bite is different too. You know, are they thumping? Are they running with it? Or what are they doing with it? So that'll kind of tell you a lot of things. But then after that, I will shake a fish off.
Strengths and weaknesses, and I know you grew up in the college fishing realm and stuff, and a lot of anglers are asked us, like, what would you consider yourself, an offshore fisherman or a shallow water guy, or the third is like, I'm well rounded in all of them?
Yeah, so I would love to say offshore. That's pretty much strictly what I do around here. Chateau, Lanier, Hartwell, all these places, offshore fanatic. I love live scope. I caught them on live scope, I think, everywhere that we went this year. Even Wright Patman, I had some brush piles, and half my fish came out of those. So definitely an offshore fanatic. But the one event that did surprise me this year was Saginaw. I never turned a graph on all day and still I think finished 7th or something. So that was definitely different. But I love the change too. I love shallow water fishing. I'm not afraid to get out of the boat and push the boat around. I will catch them however they want to bite, but definitely offshore would be my primary go-to.
I asked that question because, with the whole world being on fire, the whole bass fishing world being on fire with forward-facing sonar debates and stuff like that, and we don't really get into that debate, but I think it's interesting. There's a lot of people that believe that the younger generation of angler is going to be very well versed at technology, but are going to be missing that OG type of skill, that flipping, pitching, skipping, fishing shallow, frogging, all that stuff. Do you think that's the case with a lot of the younger anglers moving into the ranks?
I really don't. Just look at the college guys. They will catch them whether they're in 6 inches of water or 60 feet of water. These guys are good. Yes, a lot of these younger guys, especially me, I've grown up through high school, college with live scope. So that's always been, a part of my stash, so to speak. But like I said, you've got in this game, you have to be so versatile too. You've got to be willing to turn those graphs off. You've got to be willing to do other things. Because a lot of times, depending where you go, especially Florida, graphs, you don't need them. You don't need live scope. So you've got to be versatile. And I feel like a lot of these guys, these younger guys, while you hear that they're solely focused on the graphs, I believe that they're a lot more versatile than you actually would think.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think initially I was of the mindset, like maybe there will be some skills that the younger guys are missing. But, I think Pete and Ben brought it up earlier when we in the year. It was like the learning curve, the gap is a lot smaller than it ever was. Mm-hmm. Where, you guys growing up, you have everything at your fingertips if you can afford it. And it doesn't mean that you're only glued to forward-facing sonar. And in fact, while it may be a primarily a shallow water tournament, guys are still figuring out how to catch the bigger quality fish offshore or using that technology, even in shallow water situations. So I don't necessarily agree with a lot of people thinking that the younger guys are going to be missing the ability to flip and pitch and all that stuff. I just think they're using technology to their advantage, right? As you should in a competitive nature.
You got to pivot on that a little bit though, because there are young anglers that are coming up that cannot fish shallow. I can tell you right now, because I talk to guys that run college tournaments that have marshaled young guys, that I know for a fact there's a few anglers that if something happens to their front graph, they just put it on the trailer. They won't even fish the tournament because they don't have those skills. And it's not everybody. I think what we're seeing, like Will said, the true anglers, the guys and gals at the top of the sport, high school, college, into the pros, are going to catch them anywhere. It doesn't matter, like he said, 6 inches of water or 60 foot of water. They're going to figure out how to catch those fish. Because they put the time in and they learn. And I also think I can take anybody and in 12 hours teach them how to fish shallow. Like
Yeah.
pitching, flipping to me is a much easier skill to learn than fishing deep. Now, the actual mechanics behind flipping, pitching might take a little bit of practice, but reading water, fishing shallow, visible cover, sight fishing, that kind of stuff, I think is a lot easier to teach somebody than offshore. Like I focus on offshore and I still am terrible. Like I learned
I don't think
more
you're terrible.
offshore fishing last year, spending time with you on the boat, than I have like in the last 3 years trying to figure it out. But I want to pivot that because I do think there are people that can't do it all. But like Will said, the folks that are having success, he's a perfect example. Like he can go to Wright Patman and catch them shallow, but then he found some fish on brush piles that he caught that maybe other people weren't messing with. So when we talk about that skill gap closing, you're not going to see many guys like John Cox.
No.
It doesn't matter the tournament. That dude's going to go catch him in the dirt on Lanier and finish in the top 10, something that I don't know if anybody would have predicted, even in the fall, like to be able to compete to go catch those fish super shallow like that. Like that dude, not to take anything away from you, might be like one of the most naturally gifted fishermen to grace the sport just with what he's able to do.
But Will, as a competitor, do you welcome guys and gals that are coming up in the ranks that are not well versed? Do you welcome that?
Oh yeah. No, it's I'm open to fishing against anyone except Patrick Walters. I don't.
No, that one right there should drive you. I say that because I would much rather, as a competitor, prefer you to only have a one-track mind, because you're going to self-select when it comes to competition. You might win one, but if you're not versatile, like you said, then it gives me more of an opportunity to take your money or your sponsor's money or whatever the case may be. And so I think that's what you'll see is, I agree with you. I think there's people, it's just like anything in life. There's people that are pretty balanced at all things, and then they're really good at one thing. But from a competitive standpoint, I want those people growing up only doing one thing, because then you can go to Lanier and John Cox your way into the top 10, or Will Harkins your way into second place, or whatever the case may be. So it's really an unanswerable question, but like, I just think people are going to start self-selecting if they only have that mindset going through college and stuff.
So when you said at Saginaw, you didn't even turn your graph on. Were you fishing for largemouth mostly down there?
Yes, I was. So practice, I went in, practice, I was going to full on smallmouth. But that was my first trip up north, and I'd never seen water that big. So I was sketched out running out through there. So I was like, so I went and found a backup plan and ended up running into a little area. I had all to myself all week, and catch, I could catch, first day I didn't go out there just because of the weather. Only had like 13 pounds. So the next 2 days I went out there and caught 17 a day. Just, 6 inches of water, swim jig, just jacking 50 fish a day. It was incredible. I love a change up like that. I'm not afraid. Like I said, I will gladly run up a creek and go fish shallow and flip it all. I could care less if that's, how the fish are going to bite. I'll catch them however.
That's definitely, we've talked about it on other shows. Like we want them to bite the way we want them to bite all the time, but you got to do what the fish are telling you. And so yeah, that big water can get sketchy. Trey and I grew up north and fishing that stuff. So like, I don't mind running way offshore if I have to, but
not in a jumbo.
Do you have any plans like to try to get up there? It's kind of a hard sign of year during the off season, but do you try to plan some trips up there to kind of get more comfortable on that bigger water?
Not really
throughout the season, or
I don't like doing a lot of pre-practice. I know a lot of these guys would go spend a lot of time before off limits. All of the better events I had, I just showed up and figured it out the week of, because it's going to change. So I do pretty much all my research mapping on Google Earth to kind of get a feel for the lake. But then at the same time, I want to show up fresh mind, and just go fish the moment. I don't want a whole lot of history.
So for this season, did you have a travel partner or a group of guys or a group of anglers that you stayed with, or how did that work?
Yeah. So the first couple events I didn't, I was new, didn't know anybody. But then I think starting from Santee, maybe Saginaw. Two guys I room with, Richard Key and Daniel Begehe. Both of them are fabulous guys, like-minded. It was a ball hanging out with them and traveling everywhere. And especially Richard now. Daniel won't be fishing next year, but Richard's coming back for another year. So we are constantly bouncing each other off ideas, places to stay, baits, things like that. So it's awesome having someone you can kind of share a lot of things with too.
Yeah. So are you big into, sharing, information and stuff after practice is over? Or are you guys pretty tight-lipped and, hey, good luck, buddy?
Yeah. So with Mr. Key, I'll share quite a bit. I'll share pretty much everything with him, because you get a lake like a Saginaw, it's massive. So it helps having two to break it down. Outside of that though, I'll be tight-lipped.
Mm-hmm. Has Doc Talk ever screwed you up before? Not
on the national side of things. Local sides, definitely. Because, all the old men sit around and talk about all these big fish. And it's like, oh, I need to go try that today or do this. And so it definitely has, but you kind of learn to ignore most of that.
Yeah. So
you come around here, it's all shaky head and rock. That's all it is. Shaky
or
head and rock.
Alabama rig.
Shake your head on the rock. What color? Black trick worm.
I was on Bob's point. So, if you listen to us, and I hope you do, I think it was a couple episodes ago, we had John Cruz on. And, John's a well-respected angler, a steward of the profession for sure. But we were talking to him about Doc Talk and stuff like that. And in his experience, he got the pleasure of fishing against Kevin Van Dam, who played some of the best mind tricks on people. Is there anybody in the league, in your opinion, that plays mind tricks? Maybe not at the KVD level, but at the league level?
Man, I don't know. I don't talk to a lot of people, just to avoid that reason.
Smart man.
But you always hear the Todd Goad. He's always on them everywhere he goes. I got 4 things working, and we're like, what in the world is he doing? But you learn real quick, just to throw that to the side, let him do his thing. Most of all, you just got to figure it out yourself. You're never going to catch other people's fish and do what they're doing.
Right. I mean, Todd, what was Todd lying though?
Todd was probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah, Todd was probably.
Yeah, he's probably on him. Yeah, it's funny. We all get influenced in some way by something, whether or not it's Doc Talk or you're out there on the water or whatever the case may be. But there are some intimidating personalities and those that are playing mind tricks. Now that you're going into 2024, you're going to have a significantly larger field than you were used to in the 23 season. So you guys are looking at around 130 anglers, give or take?
Yes, sir. Yes, 130.
Are any of those guys coming to the league that or that you fished with before?
So there's a handful of notable names from Bassmaster. You've got the David Fritz, John Cox, Patrick Walters, all these guys again, with a handful of new ones, Wes Logan, to name a few. So you've got some of those bigger names. There's 1 or 2 more college guys coming in, or recently graduated college guys that I recognize from college. But really a 130 boat field doesn't change a whole lot. The BFLs around here, you're looking at 150 to 200. So it's as far as that competition level, it's still going to be the same. It was awesome having the small field just because you could get to know everybody. So it was really tight knit. So I hope we don't lose that with the 130. But from the competition side of things, it really doesn't change a whole lot.
Not even having the 130 on day 3? You think that makes a difference?
So once again, it kind of depends where you go. So the way I fish, I look for just stuff way off the beaten path. I will not fish community stuff. So it probably will impact these lakes a little more. But like I said, you've got all these 200 boat tournaments around here too.
Yeah.
So you just got to figure out a way to catch them either way.
I mean, you're seeing 130 boats in a lot of local
tournaments,
like trails now. It's with the sport growing. So that was a good question though, because I was going to ask the same thing, like if there was a change, because I think even college you have cuts going into the championship day, correct, where they shrink the field. So I guess like Lanier, I would imagine it wouldn't make as much of a difference, but you get on a lake that's fishing small, which they could run into with the drought across the country and kind of the water situation all over the place right now. What event are you most looking forward to in 24?
I love Hartwell. I've been there a ton of times. Spotted Bass Factory once again. I just hope they're a little farther along in May than what they typically are. But that would probably be my circled one, would be Hartwell.
Of the, because I got the 2024 roster pulled up, and I know you're kind of getting into that.
What's the date on the Hartwell one?
So the Hartwell one is May 12th through the 18th.
Yeah, that's kind of early. I mean, that could be right in that transition window.
Yeah. So let's run down your 24 schedule. So, and we're not going to talk information because I think you guys are off limits now. But Logan Martin, have you ever been there before?
Once, actually, just recently. And once again, spotted bass amazement. We went there for 3 days and caught 50 fish a day. It was a lot of fun. So I'm definitely looking forward to that one.
Okay. Well, first of all, what's your favorite technique to catch spotted bass on?
Winter time is by far my favorite time. And we've got a variety of techniques that kind of we do a lot of bait testing here on Chateau, especially in the wintertime. So I've got several that you're not going to see many people throw, if any. So those are definitely some of my favorite ones. So
that's why we told you to wait till after the show.
That was perfect. That was the perfect answer. My
Listen
secret
to that.
baits, nobody knows.
All right. So we talked about Logan Martin, Spotted Bass Factory, Hartwell, Spotted Bass Factory, Pickwick. You've been there because did you guys go there? No, you didn't
Which
go there.
Pickwick?
Which Pickwick? I thought there's only one.
Oh yeah, there's only one Pickwick.
You're thinking of Eufaula.
I'm thinking Eufaula.
Pickwick, Counts, Tennessee. You been there?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I've been there quite a few times. This last year for MPFL, that was the first time I've been there that early. Most of the times I've been there, it has been that June, July period. That's offshore schools of fish. So I'm excited for that one too. That one's going to be tougher. It's a little later in the summer. So we'll see how that works out. But offshore, I will take it.
Absolutely, man. Like you like deep cranking and dragging a big jig and Carolina rig and stuff?
Yeah, some of that. Yeah, I hate a jig, but the rest of that would be good.
Dude, all right.
I don't blame you for hating a jig. There's a lot of people that hate a jig.
We'll talk about that because I'm not a huge jig fan. Well, I've gotten to really love jigs, but yeah, I'm
I think then they're going to Saginaw. Are you gonna go on the big water this year? You're gonna send
absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, at least in practice, depending on the wind, if the weather's terrible, then there's no way.
Right.
But I'm going into that event 100% dedicated to smallmouth.
Yeah. I mean, those northern fisheries, man, they get a break through the wintertime they get a break. And that's just the beauty of the North. Like, even if you're catching small fish, you're catching a bunch of fish up there. So you guys should have a great time. I think this is the third year in a row. Like, you guys are going. They've
gone to Saginaw every year.
Yeah.
I think it's the only one that, and they said Paul and Brad told us they'll go there every year. So.
Yeah. Great community, great hosts, and great body of water. And then you're moving down to the land, Florida for St. John's.
Which is interesting. Because I've talked to a bunch of folks about St. John's, including 3 people that have lived on the St. John's River, and they say I've never seen a tournament go out of Deland or however you say it. So going out of a little bit of a less traditional
where's it at
area, it's more
south of what's the town called? Palatka?
I'd
have to look, but I believe so. Like, it's way further than anybody really gets.
So it's more towards the lake than it is towards Jacksonville.
Yes.
I guess so.
So how have you been to St. John's? And you probably have not been out of that part of St. John's.
I've been to Palatka. We fished a BFL regional there a year or two ago. So that's definitely an interesting place. I think I finished 20th there at regional. So it was definitely a weird place. It's all depending on the timing.
Sure.
I'd love to fish offshore, and sometimes that time of year in the river up there, the shell bars will play, things like that. So I'm hoping that's kind of it, but I have no idea where we're going out of either, and how far of a run north the area that I'm used to would be. So definitely interested to see exactly where the ramp is. I don't think they've released it yet. To kind of see.
No, just the town.
Yeah, just the town. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty good poke, regardless from there to at least talking to the guys I know that have lived down there. Corbishley was one of them. We talked to Mike at Cashin on Saturday, and him and I were talking about that one. He was like, yeah, I even called my buddies that still live down there, and they're like, nobody goes out of there. So it should be an interesting one, a little bit non-traditional. And then close out the year on Lake of the Ozarks, which have you ever been on Lake of the Ozarks?
I have not. Nope.
Okay.
And I think that's an all three fish lake, right? They got largemouth, smallmouth, and spots.
Yeah, they should. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Ben's neck of the woods. So I know Josh Watkins is looking forward to that. He's in Missouri, Bubba, and he's ready to fish for those. I guess all three species. But so for 2024, you guys gotta and we've talked about it before, but the schedule allows you guys to reset and refit after every tournament because they're not stacked up against each other. But you made did you make the championship for this year?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's one thing we didn't talk about. You're going to be treading down to Amistad.
Yeah. That's quite a ways from North Georgia.
So you haven't been to that one yet?
You have not been to that one?
No, sir. Nope. I have not.
Okay. So what are you what are your thoughts on Amistad?
Hey, I have no idea. That time of year, I would guess that they are spawning, but I have no idea. Most of these lakes that we went to this year, I've never seen before. I think 4 of them I've never been to seen before. So I love figuring out new bodies of water. So I'm looking forward to that one, especially there only being 25 guys. So that'll be an interesting one for sure.
Yeah. That'll be like like that nostalgia of having like a little club tournament, obviously for a far bigger purse.
Yeah.
In great company. But so 2024 is looking pretty bright, man. I know Patrick Walters is the guy you said you don't want to fish against, but if there's anybody on tour that is the one that you want to beat down, who is it? Is it Patrick?
Yeah, it's Patrick. Just for the sake of it being him. But I welcome any and all competition. It's going to be a tougher year. The talent pool is definitely a lot bigger than it was this year. I feel like, but that in turn makes you a better fisherman too. So you may have a slightly more down year this year, but on down the road, that makes you a better overall fisherman. So I'm happy that they've gone to the 130 and excited to see some of the new faces.
Yeah. You got a lot of faces from North Carolina. We were talking about it at Cashin, and it's like, man, what is North?
Yeah, it'll be exciting when that roster comes out.
Yeah,
there's like 18 North Carolina.
I don't know what it is, but North Carolina loves the NPFL. So as far as gear and stuff are concerned, are you running a new boat this year, or what are you looking like?
No, so I'll be running the same boat. I've got a Skeeter ZX200. Most of this I'm paying out of pocket for, so I'm working for. So I got to be economical with my funds. So I'll be running that boat again. Really not a big change up from this year with anything. But yes, same equipment, same stuff. New wrap on it, new look coming soon, but
that'll be cool to see. Are you like me, where if it's not broken, I don't need to fix it?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. I like that. That's fiscally responsible, just to let you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I think I'd roll with the same gear if I
Yeah.
had that year, my first year for sure.
Yeah, I mean, your performance, your stats showed it. Like, why change it? You know what I mean? So I'm definitely looking forward to 2024. I do. Before we, I have a totally off the wall question. If you guys don't have anything else on 24,
Go for it.
so you mentioned it, man. Like, why do you hate jigs?
Yeah, it's like dragging around a piece of grass. Like
that honestly might be
Yep.
the most perfect explanation of what a jig feels like when you're dragging a jig. I can't even argue that.
So
Yeah,
dragging around a piece. Do you not fish them, or do you just fish them when you have to fish them?
Now, I will fish them when I have to. I rarely. I think this whole year I've thrown it in a tournament once, and that was at Eufaula. I could not get them to bite a shaky head or a drop shot or anything consistent. So I was like, heck, I'll try a jig, and they ate it. And I was like, dang it. Yeah, that's the right. So I ended up catching probably 3/4 of my fish that week on a jig. But outside of that, I did not throw one.
I mean, you like a swim jig, though.
Yeah, I like a swim jig. I like fishing fast.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't like slowing down much. I love throwing a drop shot. That's about the only exception. Love throwing a drop shot. Outside of that, I'm moving and grooving.
Okay.
You wait till you get one of them 4.5, 5 pound northern smallmouth on the old drop shot, and then you won't care what the wind's doing. You'll be running out there.
So is there anything, I mean, you don't like fishing a jig. Is there any technique that you just don't fish at all?
Around here, we don't have any grass, really. So
That's
I'm
right.
not very well versed in, I've been to several places. I love to frog and flip and all. But I don't know enough about grass fishing to feel real comfortable with it.
Okay.
So like Santee Cooper earlier this year, I caught several of my fish, finished third there. I had kind of two deals going. One was a drop shot and brush piles, and some timber and such as that. So that was a rodeo with 6-7 pounders on a little fairy wand.
Yeah.
The other deal I had was the grass, and that was the first tournament I've ever really had to figure the grass out. But I almost treated them like brush piles. There's isolated clumps. So, I go throw a chatterbait over them or flip in them or something of that nature. So definitely would like to learn the grass fishing more. So that's probably a weakness for sure.
It almost seems like I think a lot of anglers, myself included, we overcomplicate a lot of like what we're looking at. And we're like, man, it's grass. I don't really know the grass. And you're like, I'll just treat it like a brush pile. I know brush piles, right? If they're in it, they're going to eat pretty much the same stuff that I throw into a brush pile. Now, of course, like tidal waters and things like that, or types of grass and aquatic vegetation, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Sure, that plays a factor, especially when you get into grass-heavy lakes such as like Toho and stuff like that. But do you think a lot of anglers just overcomplicate what they're looking at?
Absolutely, yeah. Fishing is not they're not quite as smart as we make them out to be. We don't need all these color shades, all these different techniques and all. Stick with what's basic. This year in total, I probably caught all of my fish on 5 or 6 baits at all of these lakes, across the year. So you don't need 100 rods, 100 different shades, 100 different colors.
Hold on.
Just
gotta have the rods.
I mean, you know what? You make me feel dumb, Will. You make.
I mean, I've been saying that, and I've said it on the show before. Like, if you go in my boat, I have a million soft plastics, like way more than I will ever need. But I have like 5 colors. You have green pumpkin, black and blue, something that mimics a shad, which is usually just white. And then I might have a June bug, and I always have morning dove. And that's it. That is all you need anywhere in the country.
You remind me. I was listening to Todd Castledine and Andrew. I think I was listening to this day, but a few days ago. Andrew's the same way as he's got. go to a new lake, I always go to little tackle shops. I find that like the baits they're using there.
Then I throw a green pump.
And Todd's like, Andrew's like, I was fishing in time. I was like, man, I lost my structure work. He's like, there's just down there. It's just a gallon bag full of all different colors. He's like, just throw one on there.
Yeah. Yeah, we get way too carried away with like, oh man, this super swirl bluegill flipping bait's going to be the ticking. I mean, yeah, it looks great to us, but
yeah,
I've caught more fish on a green pumpkin flipping bait than I'll catch on any fancy colored one. And
that's right.
And you're right. We give them way too much credit. We all do it. I mean, nobody can say they do. It's like glide baits. Like everybody wants these big, fancy, super colored, like ultra real, and I have them. Like I do, and they're only. I've caught more fish on a blank one that hasn't been painted yet than I've caught on any of the fancy painted ones that I have.
Are you a glide bait guy?
I'm not. No, I like in the spring a little bit. I'm more of a mag draft guy. I don't care for the glide.
Okay, I've never caught a fish on a mag draft yet, but I also haven't thrown them at all.
Man, there's something about the way they eat a mag draft.
Yeah,
Will knows what's up. It's like they just freight train that joker when
they do.
Yeah, it's kind of like an A-rig. You know how when a fish hits an A-rig, they just try to rip it out of your hands. It's the same with a mag draft, except they're usually bigger fish.
Yeah. So for the folks watching and listening, you heard it. The professor himself said, "Listen, the algorithm is very easy. Stay simple. Don't overcomplicate it. You give them too much credit. Just catch the fish, right? That's all you need to do, right, Will?"
That's all. It's easy. You just gotta catch them.
That's right.
The last question I have for you, and I will shut my trap. We talk about it all the time when it comes to resiliency, mental, emotional resiliency, right? Physical resiliency is obviously a factor, and you dealt with that when you were sick during one of the events, but that has a mental and emotional pressure on you as well. Are you one of those people that can get out there, and if you lose a big fish or something doesn't go your way, are you able to bounce back and just move on from that?
Yeah, you've got to. You can't sit there and sulk on it. Yeah, it hurts in the moment, but that's fishing. Other guys are going to have the same thing happen. So I always reflect back to one moment before I even really kicked off into major fishing. I was watching Brian Latimer on Lake Seminole when he won that tournament. And he flipped in a piece of foil or something, hung and jumped off a giant 7 or 8 pounder. And he just looks and he's like, that was cool. And so from that moment on, I was like, and he ended up going on to win the event because he kept his cool and just went and fished. So every time something like that happens, I kind of flash back to that moment and just think, man, that was cool. Let's catch the next one.
That's right.
So you've got to keep that level head on you. Or else you will spin out. And there's been tournaments, I don't have a fish at 1:00. And you just got to just keep an open mind on things. It's so easy. 90% of fishing is the mental game. 10% of it's the execution. So if you keep your mental game right, you will enjoy fishing with flying colors. When we start to overcomplicate it, and get down on ourselves, it's really easy to burn out and to start, that slow train wreck throughout the year.
That's right. I'm probably the greatest at spinning out of a tournament of anybody.
Your dad is.
That's who I learned from. Learned from the best. So.
I definitely appreciate, like Pete said, you're 22, but your mentality goes old guard. And I think that's really important for the younger guys and gals trying to grow up and do this. There's so many people that want to do this. I don't know if they want to do it for the right reasons, or they don't have all the calculations in place to be able to do this. So, from you to all the listeners, like those are words of encouragement, and hopefully people reach out to us like, hey, to get in contact with you and stuff like, hey, how do I economically break this down? How can I do this? Because even if you fish the Toyota Series and the BASS Opens and stuff, that's a huge financial burden as well. And that's fish management as well. Against a larger crowd, there's a lot of lessons learned in there. So good words of advice, and I definitely appreciate it. And with that, I will turn it over to Ben and Pete. because I've run my mouth.
Yeah, no, I mean, like when you started talking about bead lat, I knew exactly where you were going because I remember watching that video too, and I would have broke a rod if I was him, like 100%.
What, gone Ike?
Oh, I would have lost that tournament because I would have come unglued. Like I don't have that maturity yet, I guess. So
He's still young enough.
it's refreshing to to hear somebody but we hear from everybody that comes on here on the show that we've had on, successful tournament anglers from the NPFL to guys fishing the elites and everything, and they're all the same way. It's like you just have to reset. And I got a lot better last year doing that than I have previously, but man, it's just refreshing to hear. We keep saying the younger generation. We're not that old, but the up and coming anglers are kind of learning those lessons, and it's cool to watch. It really is. I'm thinking out loud here. I'm honestly blown away, Will. Like a young guy to be that mature is super impressive.
It is super impressive. It was great meeting you down at Lanier. I think we are quite a bit older. I know.
Shut up, man.
No, I mean, so
yeah,
high school's 12 years younger than me, but just the fishing has changed so much with the high school and the college, and the explosion of all the other tournaments now. Like we weren't getting this experience back in the day,
absolutely.
And so, to see Will, so professional, so mature, but also, so dedicated to the craft and to the sport, and so good at it too. It's phenomenal to see. So we definitely appreciate you hopping on here. And I know as we're getting close to wrapping up, we always like to give folks the opportunity to shout out anybody, any sponsors. So
yeah, absolutely. No, thank you guys. You touched on fishing for the right reasons. And so that's a thing that so many people overlook. It doesn't matter how many fish you can catch, how big they are, whatever, you've got to be there for the right reasons. And so in all these events, everywhere that you go, fishing is so secondary. It's making an impact on the kids who come up to you, on the communities that you go and do outreach events to. Those are the relationships and the things that truly make a difference. So when you're fishing, not for the money, not for the fame, not for any of that, fishing becomes fun again. Because you're not stressed. Obviously, it is a financial burden, so to speak. But all of that will take care of itself if you're out there having fun, and making an impact that goes way beyond fishing. So that's the biggest, I guess, piece of advice I would give is to definitely focus on those right reasons. Because without the impact, without giving back to the communities and to the guys, fishing's just a bunch of guys going out there, enjoying their day. There's no impact there. So I'm glad you touched on that.
Yeah, I think it's an important message. Anytime a major event, whether it be fishing or anything else, comes to a host community that puts its resources against that organization and opens its arms, that some form of legacy is left behind. And you have no idea what that relationship could lead to in the future. Not that you're going out there to get money from somebody, but the way you treat another human being could open the doors that you wouldn't even imagine, right? And so I wouldn't be surprised if anglers in the NPFL who do those community outreach programs get those phone calls in the future. Just like Brad and Paul said, like those are the unsung heroes. Those are the things that the municipalities and things are asking about after the fact. Is like, why don't I see Will Harkins on camera? Like, where is he at? I want to see him again, right? And so those are the influence things that nobody really captures. We are stuck on the tournament results and the recap and who's hoisting the trophy, and we should be. But there's a lot of like underground news that's going on that not a lot of people know about. So it's on the anglers and the leaders and the organizations to highlight that, because that's right. That's the reason, right? And not everybody has to have the same motivations. We're not saying that, but those who do have that motivation, like they are fishing for what I would consider the right reasons. So, hey man, without further ado, we talked about making it possible. Obviously, Professor Harkins has like the algorithm down on Power BI or Excel or whatever you're using. But outside of that, family, partnerships, sponsorships, who do you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, so this year I was supported by a million local guys. That's where all of the funds came from. The Chamber of Commerce in Blairsville, Miss Crystal Fairless there, has been incredible, helping me pursue this dream with just as much excitement as I am. Mr. Clayton with Heaven's Harvest and Cameo Fencing, he came along and he's helping me out in 2024 as well. So big shout out to him. Thank him for all that he does. State Farm, my family, most of all, girlfriend, she travels everywhere that we go. Just massive support from the entire community of Blairsville and Hiawassee up here. It's definitely been, eye-opening for me just to see the support and the help and, everything. It's been amazing.
For where all of our fans and all the followers can find you on socials, why don't you throw your socials out? We're going to link them in there too. Pete's going to link them to me specifically. But yeah, who are your, what are your socials?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, Will Harkins and Will Harkins Fishing. Facebook, Will Harkins. I've got a website, getfishingguide.com. So I run guide trips, Chateau, Notley, Burton, Blue Ridge, all these places around here. So that's pretty much where I'm at.
Awesome, man. You run guide trips.
There you go, Trey. Where's your Chateau trip?
I will order a Chateau trip on your credit card right now.
Mine?
No, man, we appreciate it. You're definitely a professional with a passion that wants to leave a legacy behind. We appreciate you taking the time to come on here, and this gives us an opportunity to push your story out to our fans and our followers. And it's not just a tournament recap stuff, but like we talked about, Will Harkins crushed him in 2023. We see big things for you in 24. We're ready for the professor to go up against the coach. So looking forward to how you guys battle it out in 2024. We might have to make like little bobbleheads or something, and make I don't know, Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
That's right.
That just dated me right there. But yeah, man, we appreciate it. We're looking forward to it. Like we said, hang on after we close out the show, and we'll wrap with you a little bit. Guys, you got anything?
I just want to thank you again for coming on, man. I've been super impressed.
No, thank y'all for the opportunity.
Yeah, no, definitely. We love to have you on. We'll definitely have you back. Been around this fishing and outdoors hunting industry for a long time, and I can tell you're going to go a long way with just the way you are with folks, and success aside, which clearly you had going last year. You've had through the BFLs in college. Just your positive mental attitude and the way that you promote yourself in those companies is going to carry you a long way. So super excited to watch you continue to grow. Everybody, you heard him say his socials. They're going to be linked down below. Make sure you go throw him a follow, a like, follow along with him next year on the NPFL when he tries to hoist one of those really sweet shields. I still think they got the best trophy in all of fishing. Make sure you check out the sponsors he shouted out if you're in those areas, and those companies can help you do any work, and let them know that you heard from Will, that they support him and you want to support them. Like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you check out OneCast Fishing. Get those last minute jigs and long neck hooks and all that stuff for Christmas. This is going to come out. You only got a week left to shop, so make sure you also go to CarolinaWatersNC.com and grab some of that gear. We've been talking about them. Both those are the code TheOneCast, all one word, to save some money. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that hoopla that we say every week. It really does help us continue to grow and bring you more stuff. Will, thank you again. Looking forward to next year. We're going to be, we got to talk. I either want to go to Hartwell because it's close, or I want to go to St. John's just because it's something different. So we're going to figure out what tournament we're going to come to next year, and maybe we'll end up at both. Hartwell's not that far. We could run down there just for the day. So looking forward to seeing you next year. Looking forward to following your growth and seeing everything that the sport brings you and that you bring to the sport. Trey, you want to close us out?
Yeah, man. Will, thank you again. And like we always end with our show, let's continue to grow a culture of anglers helping anglers, one cast at a time.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.